The Pigeon Sacrifice. A tale of protective wings. It was the dead of winter, and the bitter cold had wrapped the town in a white, icy grip. Snow blanketed the streets, and sharp icicles hung like spears from the rooftops, gleaming in the pale sunlight. The once bustling streets were now silent, as no human or animal dared to venture outside in the chilling wind. The cold was so intense that it could freeze a drop of water in an instant. Birds, once chirping and fluttering about, had taken refuge wherever they could find warmth. But warmth was scarce, and many had already succumbed to the cruel grasp of winter. Under the shelter of a house's porch, a group of pigeons huddled together, their feathers puffed up, trying desperately to conserve what little warmth they had left. Their breath came out in tiny clouds, and their eyes drooped with exhaustion. There were a dozen or more of them, clinging to life in the biting cold, each one pressing against the other for comfort. Their wings, once meant for soaring through the sky, now felt heavy as they shivered against the unrelenting frost. In the distance, a few sparrows fluttered weakly towards the pigeons. The sparrows were much smaller and frilier than the pigeons, and they had little chance of surviving the harsh winter night on their own. Their tiny wings struggled against the cold air as they landed clumsily near the porch, their bodies trembling from the icy wind. Desperation filled their tiny hearts as they chirped at the pigeons, seeking help. "Dear pigeons," chirped one of the sparrows, its voice barely audible over the howling wind. "May we huddle with you? Your feathers look so warm and safe." The sparrows' eyes were wide with fear, their little bodies nearly frozen. They looked up at the pigeons, hoping for a glimmer of mercy. The pigeons, though kind-hearted, hesitated. They too were barely holding on in this merciless cold. One of the pigeons, with her feathers quivering, turned to the sparrows and said, "If you nestle with us, your cold bodies might take away what little warmth we have left. We are already so close to freezing." Her voice was filled with sorrow as she looked at the pitiful sparrows. "But we won't survive the night alone," cried the sparrows, their small voices filled with hopelessness. "Please, dear pigeons, we are so cold. So very cold." The pigeons exchanged worried glances. Some of them were reluctant, thinking only of their own survival. But one brave pigeon, with her heart full of compassion, opened her wing and cooed softly, "Come. You may nestle under my wing." A trembling sparrow, weak and frail, fluttered shakily over and tucked itself under the pigeon's broad, feathered wing. The warmth that the pigeon offered was a small but life-saving gift. Another pigeon followed suit, opening her wing for a sparrow. "Come," she cooed, offering protection to another frozen bird.
"Come."
"Come," echoed the other pigeons one after another, until half of the flock had offered their wings to the shivering sparrows. Not all the pigeons were so willing. "You're very foolish," said some of the others. "You mean well, but why risk your own lives for these little sparrows? We may all freeze because of them." The compassionate pigeons shook their heads. "They are so small and so cold," they said softly. "We may not all survive the night, but if we are to perish, let us share what little warmth we have with these sparrows who are in even greater need than us." The wind grew harsher, and the night seemed endless. The cold wrapped around the porch like an icy blanket, and the world outside was silent, save for the occasional whistle of the wind. The pigeons and sparrows huddled close, waiting for the dawn, knowing that some of them might not make it through the night. Hours passed, and the frost grew thicker. An hour after sunset, a man hurried home, his breath visible in the frigid air. As he entered the house and closed the heavy door behind him, his little daughter stood by the window. Her eyes widened in surprise as she watched something fall from the porch.
"Papa."
"Look," she cried. "A poor frozen pigeon has fallen on our porch." The father, concerned, went outside to investigate. There, under the porch, he saw the pigeons, many of them lying still, their bodies stiff from the cold. He bent down and gently picked up one of the fallen pigeons, cradling it in his hands. As he did so, he noticed something extraordinary. One by one, as the father lifted the pigeons and carried them inside, he saw that under the wings of each revived pigeon, there was a tiny sparrow, nestled close to its heart, safe and warm. The sparrows, though weak, had survived the night, thanks to the selflessness of the pigeons. The little girl, watching in amazement, exclaimed, "Papa, every pigeon that is alive has a sparrow under its wing. They saved them." The father nodded, touched by the sight. "These pigeons sacrifice their own warmth to save the sparrows," he said quietly. "Such kindness, such selflessness. They are true protectors." Inside the warm house, the pigeons that had survived slowly began to move, their stiff wings loosening as they warmed up. The sparrows, though still weak, chirped softly, grateful for the protection that had saved their lives. However, as the father and daughter looked back at the pigeons that had not survived the night, they noticed that none of those pigeons had a sparrow under their wings. Those that had refused to share their warmth had perished in the cold, while those who had offered protection to the sparrows had lived to see the dawn. Outside, the wind still howled, but the storm had passed. Inside the house, where it was warm and safe, the pigeons and sparrows rested, their lives intertwined in a story of sacrifice and survival. Every pigeon that had taken a sparrow under its wings had saved not only the life of another, but also their own. The pigeons who shared their warmth rejoiced in the days to come, basking in the bright, joyful sunshine. Their act of kindness had not only protected the sparrows, but had also ensured their own survival in the coldest night of winter.